Aloha and welcome to the Path of Me podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I wanted to create a sacred space for soul to soul conversations with people sharing their light through their passion, power, and purpose. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me introduce my next amazing podcast guest. Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have the lovely Laurie Seymour today with us. She's a two-time international best-selling author. She's host of the Wisdom Talk radio podcast and the owner and creator of the Baca Institute, which I'm so interested to deep dive into. She's so much more, certified master trainer, international speaker. But let's just deep dive in. Welcome, Laurie. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much. We never know what direction we're going to go, but it always seems to unfold perfectly. So I just trust the process, you know? The first thing I wanted to ask you was a little bit about your history. How have you become who you are today? And what were some of the pivotal moments in your journey that kind of set you on this path?
That's an interesting question in this moment in time, because I could talk about, kind of childhood pivotal experiences that are part of what my upcoming book is about.
Those are important,
Those are important, and I want to put it into a frame because the frame for me is about forgetting and remembering. Forgetting that I am source. I am part of this unlimited potential.
Mm-hmm.
And that relates very much to love. And for me in my own life, because I lost my father when I was really, really young, and he was the one that I knew love through. He kind of represented that for me in my life. And so when he passed, because no one else understood what was going on, I didn't know that I could still stay in touch with him at that point. I didn't know that
How old were
I
you?
was 6. It was just before I was 7.
What a precious age.
Yeah. And I didn't know that I could feel love in any other way. And so a lot of me shut down. But I also had this part of me always that knew there was something else. And yet, because no one else in my physical life ever addressed that, ever mirrored that to me, I didn't have a way to kind of land in that. And so I kind of pushed that aside, that sense of, oh yeah, there's something else, there's something more, and grew up with that side-by-side experience of there's something, I don't feel loved, and yet I know there's more, but it's probably not true. And so that self-doubt was huge in me.
Wow, to overcome that and evolve into who you are today is incredible.
Well, it is. But it took me on my own journey first to becoming a psychotherapist, because how do you get to explore that? How do you get to, try and discover more about who you are? And that was something that I was passionate about. I always wanted to know more about who I am.
I bet that really helped you to put the pieces together, in the study of it.
It did, absolutely. It started it. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about my emotional makeup, and I still felt this kind of hole in myself. And that took me to continuing that search. I became a trainer with the Institute for Consciousness and Music, and
I love that.
I had all sorts of experiences oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. And it wasn't until 1987, when I met the person that became my teacher for the next 25 years,
Oh,
that I had an energetic experience with her. And it was an initiation. It was an energetic opening, and it was a remembrance. And it was remembrance and an experience of who I am and of being source, being that unconditional love. And it changed everything in my life. It changed everything in my being. And it was like from that moment on, when we talk about pivotal experiences, that really that changed the course of everything in my life. And fast forwarding through that, um, I left being a psychotherapist because I didn't have the same, I didn't see its need in the same way, and certainly not for me.
mhm.
And I was starting to work with people in very different ways. I was part of a group working with this teacher for the next 25 years. We were doing our own inner research. How, as we're receiving these new frequencies and incorporating them into our lives and into our bodies, and what's changing? How am I living differently? How am I relating differently? How is my own use of the creative intelligence different? And so all of that was part and parcel of the next part of my life, where I was doing other kinds of research, I was doing other kinds of learning and study, and continuing to work with people and seeing how I evolved, seeing how the work evolved. I was with this teacher. I was initiated as a grand master in a particular lineage, what is called Terea, and was taking that out into the world. And when she passed, that had such an impact on me that I kind of went underground for a couple of years. And I was doing other work. It's not like I left things.
Right.
I was a solutions engineer. I was very busy in my life. Um, but then 2010-ish, I started knowing that I need to come back out into the world. And it was 2011 that I started what became the Baca Institute. I had been training and teaching in Terea Touch and Terea Meditation. I started crafting those into some new ways of working. So I know I've been talking for a while, so I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna
No,
take a
it's a
breath.
great story. I'm curious because the frequencies on the planet are changing.
Yes.
So as someone who's been working with different energies, I know that we're eternally evolving in our consciousness,
Hmm.
and our work is consciously evolving. And I'm curious about how that's presenting for you, and the energies you're working with, and how that is presenting in your own work now,
Hmm.
because we're in this massive transitional space.
We are.
So, yeah, I'm just really curious what
Mhm.
you're feeling and what you're noticing as we transition to higher light and higher frequency,
Mhm.
on the planet.
And it's such an important time and a big time. And I'll run into people, and maybe clients, friends, acquaintances that'll say, I can't handle this. I know, why am I here?
Mhm.
And I recognize that we are here because we have chosen to be here,
Exactly.
because our physiology requires these new frequencies, requires these new energies. And every day I am waking up with the experience of, oh, okay, I've been changed again.
Yeah.
And then having to see, what that is, what that feels like, what that means, how it shows up in my work with my clients,
Mhm.
um, how it shows up, I get to see it I do a twice weekly, what's called Terea meditation. They're
Mhm.
live online sessions. And I get to see there most closely because they're usually people that have been there for a while. We get new people, but I get to see how the energies are changing people. I'm working with people with the energies during the time of the meditation. It comes through in what I say. It comes through during the time of the actual meditation when it's silent. And then people share. And I'm hearing from what they're sharing, and I'm in awe every single time. I think, well, okay, yeah, and then people are saying, this happened, that happened. I had this experience, this new download. Um, I came in so anxious, and now I feel, oh, I kept hearing, just let go, and I'm trying to control everything. Uh,
I think honestly that the soul is going to take any opportunity to
mm,
guide the human. And whatever circumstance and situation they're going to place themselves in, the
mhm,
choices they're going to make, that gives the soul an opportunity and source energy to come through and deliver a message, a download, a healing,
mhm.
a release.
And an upleveling that
Well,
allows that.
ultimately it does up level you, right? But
Yeah.
I feel like the soul will take that
Mhm,
opportunity,
mm.
to
Beautiful way to
present
say it.
itself and support that human
Mhm,
incarnation, incarnate, I always call it, in whatever way and time presents and in whatever capacity is possible, because everybody's capacity to hold energy is vastly different. We're all in different harmonic bandwidths. We're
mhm,
all experiencing different realities based on that harmonic bandwidth
mm,
and frequency. So the capacity of individuals is so vast and wide. Some can receive incredible amounts of frequency. They can hold it, they can maintain it and carry it forward. And some can
mhm.
receive a drop. It just really depends on the capacity, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds wonderful that they have this opportunity to do this work with you
Mhm,
and that, they're guided to be there for a
mhm,
reason,
mhm.
right?
And what I find is that even when I think, oh, okay, I see there's this little opening and here's what's coming in. And then in the next moment, in the next breath, something shifts and something opens up. And I want to say, it's not me. It isn't me. And it's not me doing that. And there's a there's a potency to the way in which the energies are working with us now
Oh, a
as we are
hundred
able to
thousand
receive them.
percent.
Yeah,
Yes.
as we're able to receive that.
Yeah.
But that dimension of receiving sometimes opens up in a moment.
hmm hmm It really is so incredible to be or have the honor to facilitate and support the journey of others and also to witness
Yes.
the incredible shifts within them, because I think when we're here to serve others, it's really not about us, right? It's about how can we help those who are here to serve and in what capacity. So I found that as an observer, it has been such an honor to do the work
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
to be here at this time.
We
And I
wouldn't have
feel,
chosen it otherwise.
yeah, I feel also that those of us who are doing this work, had to go through incredible initiations to get to a level in order to do it in the capacity that we do it in.
Mm-hmm.
And we have faced a lot of adversity in our lives and personal loss, and we've had to overcome so much to come forward in the way that we are being pressed to come forward right now. Are you finding that to be true for yourself?
Not always. Not always. I mean, I'm not going to just talk about myself in this, but as I'm looking around at the people that I know, the people that I'm working with,
Mhm,
some of them have come in at such a high frequency. Now they're learning maybe how do I deal with this physical life from this
mhm,
place.
mhm,
But and as they do that, it's I wouldn't say I mean I tend not to focus on the adversity. um, I tend to look at what's our capacity, how is the creative intelligence wanting to express itself through us?
mhm.
And that as I learn how to do that more and more, that which looked like adversity wasn't at all. I mean, for me,
Right.
the
I mean,
loss of
we
my
always have
father
higher
was
perspective as we travel our journey,
exactly,
right? And we raise our
yes,
frequency. But in the beginning, we didn't have this perspective. We had to navigate a lot of
oh,
different things in our lives
we did.
to get to this place where we can offer what we offer
Yeah,
to
then we
our
become the bridge
very much so.
because we can see, oh yes, here is how it is now. Here is what's
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, my point is so many people are going through it
Hmm.
and they're being very pressed to get into alignment because they are here with a very specific soul mission.
Yes.
And it's difficult to shed and release everything and step into your alignment and step into your mission and power and purpose. So it may have been very easy for you, but I feel that many people are coming through a lot of intense adversity right now and
Yeah.
really struggling. And even those who have been healers and
Hmm.
very grounded and anchored within themselves are surprised at the level of emotional and physical things that
Hmm.
are shifting in their reality and the things they're confronting maybe
Yeah.
within themselves. So I don't know if that's something you see in your clients or the people
Well,
you're working with.
I'm not sure if it's that we have a different way of seeing it. So let me see how this emerges.
Mhm.
Going through it, of course, I didn't think, oh yeah, this is easy. I never thought anything was easy. Oh, and when it might have been easy, I made it difficult.
Right. Yeah.
um, and yet, when I look at it, and even when I am seeing people who are struggling, look like they're struggling, sometimes it's the tiniest shift in and the tiniest bit of remembrance that turns that into something that is not a struggle. That it doesn't mean it's easy.
Mhm.
It just means, oh, there's an expanded way of being with it, and that happens sometimes in such a surprisingly simple way.
I I hear what you're saying and I agree completely. But I really want to honor the journey of all the people that are going through
Oh,
very challenging perceived challenges and times.
absolutely,
Because this
absolutely.
is not a cakewalk, to reclaim and remember who you are requires a lot of conscious attention on how you're showing up every day and what's presenting every day and the healing and the releasing that's required every
Hmm.
single day in on the
I will
journey.
sometimes say it's not for the faint of heart.
Correct. Yeah. So you have been inspired to write a new book, which you said is
Mm,
coming out soon. It's called Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source. Tell me a little bit about that inspiration and a little bit about the content of your book.
sure, sure. I started writing it quite a number of years ago, and wrote the majority of it very quickly, and then did some editing, and then it was like I moved on into other things, and then there was a time in this last year where it was like, nope, now it's time, and so I needed to go back into it and see what was needed now. And partly it is that story that I spoke about of my own life in the beginning of what that remembrance really offered to me, but offers. And I realized that so much of my work is about teaching people how to tap into their own inner guidance, how to tap into that place of unconditional love. And it doesn't require digging up. It doesn't require excavation. And that is a really important part of why I shifted from being a therapist, because that was all excavation kind of work. That I have come to see that as people tap into what their potential is, that the physiology changes, the patterns in the cell go without having to directly stare at them and do something about them. And so that's a lot of what this book is looking at leadership, looking at innovation, looking at, how do we have relationships? How do we live life from this place? How do we remember? So it for me, it's an invitation to remember. It's an invitation to remember the truth of who you are.
I think that's
And
the key to everything, right?
it is.
How many people have had so much programming
Mm.
layered over them their whole lives
Hmm.
that it's been difficult to believe you're anything but what you've been told
What
you
you've been
are,
told. Right,
right?
right. And yet for it, this is a book, I'd say, that is for those people who mm, have that inkling that there's more, that's somewhere in them, because I'm sure that people don't come to you unless they know there's more. They don't necessarily know what it is,
Right.
but they have that feeling, wait, there's got to be more.
I think more people are opening to that
That
awareness,
makes sense.
and
Yeah.
they don't really have a foundation to build on
Yes.
because they've been very immersed in the tangible human
Yeah.
world. So they're
Yeah.
not practiced in meditation or connecting to themselves. But I've also seen, conversely,
Hmm.
people who are very, very active in nature or surfing or,
Mm.
whatever it is, and they are on their own kind of journey. And it doesn't, they are organically connecting because they are
Yes.
immersed in
Hmm.
energies of nature in
Yeah.
the ocean, in
Beautiful.
the forest, and they're hiking and whatever it is. So I just think there's so many paths up the mountain,
Oh my
and
goodness,
we need to
yes.
honor them all,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to look a certain way or feel a
It
certain way. It
can't.
doesn't have to be a forced checklist. I meditated. I drank my matcha tea. I
Oh my
took my
goodness.
ice bath. I just wrote about something about this, how there's just been this real interesting trend where people are checking all the boxes and they think that's human ascension. It's really not,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
It's active participation, but it's not true connection with source through
Hmm.
yourself and receiving guidance. It's maybe a weekend retreat every month or 6 months, and then you think you've had this incredible,
You have that high, but you
yeah,
don't know how to sustain and create that reliable
exactly. And it's
connection.
it's really about learning, I would think, in your case, what you're seeing is teaching them how to sustain that.
Absolutely, 1,000%. Because if we can't sustain it, if we can't both know when, for me, I'll say speak about it for me, if I don't know when I've forgotten, when I'm out, I won't say out of alignment because alignment is a little mythical. When when I've stopped the flow. So that's what I mean when I say I've forgotten. Then I get into concern, into worry. How is this going to work out? Disappointment, clutching on to something. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oops. For a moment, I forgot who I am, even if that moment was 6 weeks or 5 minutes. For a moment, I forgot who I am.
Right.
And let me take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that breath of God. It is that intelligence. And let me remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really, really true. It's really about remembering who we are. And, you know, I'm I'm supporting people in promoting that message as well, because
Hmm.
every person I feel is so innately um, connected
Yeah.
that it's interesting the levels of disconnection. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Based on
Yes.
the fact
Yes.
that your soul is here and you are it and you're expressing through, through this human experience
Hmm.
yourself. It's really interesting, right? How deep the programs have been, and the manipulation and control of the narratives
Hmm.
on humanity. So I'm curious what your perspective is about that.
Well, there are certainly forces present that want to support the forgetting. And and that's why it behooves us to pay attention. And to do that with a certain sense of lightness. Because if I start buying into, some of the things that I do see,
Mhm.
and witness that, if I go down into the emotionality of it, that doesn't leave me free to witness it. And so part of the work is being able to see, and helping other people be able to see what is, to have discernment. That's what I mean by looking at the for the truth,
Mhm.
is having discernment. Is this something that is of the highest? Is this something that is of your heart? Or is this something that is old and entrenched, perhaps, and of that conditioning, of those other forces that are here? Yep, they're here. But let me be able to see. Let me be able to witness.
I want to go back to your comment on discernment, because that is so important in navigating this time.
It
It's
is.
so important to discern what resonates and what is true for you, and what
Mm-hmm.
is being spoon-fed to you that you're just taking as truth.
Yeah.
So I feel like many people don't feel into that. They don't feel into the energy. They just listen to the words. They just look at the media. They just are looking at the surface and not leaning into it. Like, how do I really feel about this? Does this feel resonant with me? Am I, there's maybe I can choose not to participate in this or invite this
Mm-hmm.
in. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
need to really be more energetically protective of my field and what I'm
Mm-hmm.
exposing and inviting in, because yeah, if you can handle observing it with detachment, you're fine. But if you're getting yanked with every news headline
Mm-hmm.
or media post or whatever it is, um, it's really going to take an emotional and energetic toll on the
Yeah.
individual, you know?
Yeah. And we're not going to be able to have clarity because we're
Right.
going to be caught up in that emotional maelstrom of untruth. And I love what you're saying, Wendy, about this and about discernment, because it's a fundamentally important thing. Like, we may have, people are creative, they get lots of ideas, but if they don't have the discernment to say, which is the one that's for me right now? And is it now? Is this the right timing to act on this? Then they start spinning wheels, and trying to make something real, and start pushing, and lose that, all that fluidity that was there with the inspiration. I can't tell you how many ideas, when I'm on someone else's field, start coming into me, but it's not for me. It's for them. And to have the discernment that it's not mine to take and run with,
Right.
it's really important.
I
So yeah, I
agree.
mean, I talk about the quantum connection archetypes, and the creative dreamer is one of those people that is filled with ideas, and they love ideas, but they need to learn discernment, because without that, you burn out too, because there's that
You're
idea
chasing
and
every
there's that
idea.
idea. Yeah, you're
Every
chasing
idea is
every
a good
idea.
idea.
Yeah. And they may all be good ones,
What are
but
some of the
tuning in
other what are
is
some of the
different.
other archetypes? I'm curious.
Well, there's the pioneer. The pioneer does have some really good ideas, and the pioneer is so clear about their idea that they're out in the forefront. They're pushing out there, and they don't necessarily know, how do I communicate this idea?
Mm.
How do I how do I bring other people along? How do I then maybe even build a team around this idea? So that, that's a different kind of learning. They have this incredible capacity for bringing their idea out into the world, but communicating it, getting the support they need, or burning out.
That makes a lot of sense. What I'm very excited about is that we're moving into a direction of the law of one, which is more connection and community, collaboration, heart-centered communication, relationship, unity
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
globally
Yes.
versus the division energies that we have existed in for thousands and thousands of years. And I really have faith in humanity
Mm-hmm.
when I look at all of the things that are happening out there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a higher perspective of it. I'm watching the collapse of an old paradigm, and it needs to happen because
It needs to
it's not
happen.
working for us. It's not going to support the direction we're going. And I was wondering if your perspective is the same around what you're witnessing out there.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you brought this up, because, separation breaks my heart. And that is the old paradigm. Us against them.
Mhm.
Yeah, we, and then they are the other.
Right.
There's no truth in that. And there's no real capacity in that to tap into the higher dimensions.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's messy right now because there's a lot that's needing to collapse. There's a lot that's being unearthed, meaning brought to the surface because it needs to go. And I like you, have that sense of heartening, because I do see this connection happening. I do see so much more collaboration. I do see so much more of the desire to come together, and the willingness to recognize that, as I look at you, I see presence.
Mhm.
I don't see other. I see presence.
Right. Right.
I am, God is here and God is there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as we are able to do that, as we are willing to do that, and I see it more and more,
Right.
wow, the things that are arising out of that
Isn't it
are
beautiful?
incredible.
It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm so excited about it. And these are the things that aren't talked about or promoted, or you don't see these things every day
Yeah.
in the news, right? But
Hmm.
there is
Hmm.
such a movement and shift happening in the collective in humanity where people are really showing up for each other. And so often, like I'm just going to say, for example, like a natural disaster.
Mhm,
Like
mhm,
let's just use the fires in LA, right?
mhm.
Malibu and the Palisades fire, and it just, it seemed like all of LA was just burning for a while,
It
right?
was.
But on the flip side, there are these gifts where people are talking about saying, I understand that what matters is us.
Mhm. Yeah.
All of that was stuff, yeah, memories, it was hard, or tradition, or childhood homes and
Mhm,
heartbreak. But it gave people this perspective of,
mhm.
what's really important, and even a willingness to give in their time of loss, which is what
Yes.
happens in these situations is you see so much heart and
Mhm.
connection and love and desire to help one another. And that's the world
That
that we
is.
really are moving towards, you know? So there's beauty in these triggers
Yeah.
and harsh situations, I
And
find.
how can we help people see more of that? I don't mean there's the work we're doing is about bringing people to that. But the
Right.
other thing that you just brought forward is it's not well, the spotlight isn't on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, here's one of those ideas that comes to me. And I thought, maybe this is something that Wendy and I could do. Is just to create a platform where the light gets shined on those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it all starts with us. Like each individual is so
Mhm.
powerful, you know,
Mhm.
and they don't realize until they remember, like you're saying, until they are very firmly anchored into their column of light and their connection to their soul and open to opening their heart. Like something I've seen so much is because of the trauma wounds and things. There's so much
Mhm.
armor over the heart, and
Mhm.
it's difficult for them to even access their
Mhm.
the pureness of their heart and soul, you know, because they've had to armor up to survive.
Yeah.
And it's just exciting to know that we are moving in such a new, beautiful direction where humanity will come together. And it will take time. I mean, we're going to see a very accelerated shift and collapse, and it will take time, but I know that it's already written. You
Yeah.
know, it's
In
coming.
the big scheme of things, it's happening very quickly.
Yes, yes, so much so.
Mhm.
So, you know, for those of us who've been in the trenches, like doing this work for a long time, it's so exciting to know that humanity is just waking up in this way. You know, so many people who've been as deeply asleep are they're being activated.
They're being activated. They are really waking up. And that's why I have been moved to start these salons of life,
Mm,
meeting in people's homes.
mm,
It's like, yeah, I want to say at my age, do I want to travel even more? Okay, I'm supposed to do, okay.
right,
I'm listening.
right.
And it's that sense of community is so needed.
Hmm.
And it's the community where we can come together and remember who we are.
Yeah, I feel like you are such a bridge, like a builder, you know, of connection. You're a connector, like you create these bridges that bring people together and you connect them and you connect them
Yeah.
to themselves, you connect them to community. It seems
Yes.
like, I mean, that's just the sense I get around who you are and part of the
It
role that you're here to
is.
play, you know.
Yeah. And that's one of the archetypes is a bridge builder.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, there you go. That's beautiful. So
Mhm.
I'm I just want to remind people who are tuning in right now that it all begins with us, right? Like if you can start to connect in and create space to hear yourself and then trust yourself, what you're getting, because the
Yes.
information coming in for you is from you, from source, from the divine, and it's pure.
Hmm.
So it's so interesting because some people get pure information and then they'll go do the exact opposite. And I'm like, what happened, right? You just like
Right.
just left
It didn't
turn, you
work.
and then they
Yes,
pay for it, right? Because when you're
they
not in
do.
that flow state, as
Yeah.
you talk about, or I use the word in your column of light or divine
Mm.
source connection. Um, I call that alignment, you know, staying within that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's all semantics, right? That's when life gets more challenging.
Yes. Yes. I love that way of looking at alignment.
Uh,
I agree with that.
yeah.
And that one more point about discernment is around that is I would hear a lot of things or I would have a sensing of a lot of things, but because I had all that doubt, I
Hmm.
didn't have a way of, I didn't have discernment, and I didn't have a way of determining, is this true or
Right.
not? Is
Right.
this from personality, from ego, or from a deeper, is this from source? And it took me having the experience of what unconditional love felt like in my body
Mm,
that I
that's
could
so
start
deep.
to build discernment.
A lot of people talk about near-death experiences where
Mm.
they've, transitioned
Hmm.
and experienced the frequency of unconditional love, of source, of
Hmm.
God, of whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
semantics, the universe, whatever you want to call it, there's a vibration of unconditional love that
Right.
they're wrapped
Right.
in and enveloped in, and it pours over them in a way that is not experienced here.
Hmm.
And once
Yes.
they're touched, they can never forget. And and they realize what's really important. It's
Yeah.
not all the stuff. It's not all of the chasing. It's about who you are and that you're that expression of that in your life.
Hmm.
That you bring that through in your interactions with others and the work you choose and just all of it, right? That's
Hmm.
the magic and the gold and the meaning of life, right? To express
Hmm.
your source self. In my opinion, it is anyway.
I, I, you said it beautifully. Yeah.
So what's next for you? You're going to publish this book, and then what are
The
your
book will be
plans?
out in the next couple of months, and I've been starting to do these living room gatherings. Even did one in Paris recently, and
That's
so yeah,
cool.
it's doing more of
That's
that.
exciting. That's exciting to see that there's a desire and need out there,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you something real quick, and we're just running out of time so quickly. I don't know where the time went, but it always goes so fast.
Yes.
But I wanted to ask you, as your connection and abilities evolved, right, within yourself and unconditional love and source connection, how did your family respond to that? Because it sounds like they were very walled off from that experience, or if they were kind of in a different mindset and a different
Yeah.
paradigm. Was that difficult for you, or did you just not talk about it, or how did
Well,
that work?
it, I was talking about my family of birth.
Right.
And by then, my parents were gone.
Oh, okay.
So, my brothers, yeah, I could talk about it, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter one way or another
Right.
because they didn't have to agree with me.
Right. Right. I was
Um,
just curious about that because
yeah, no, I mean,
some
my
people they have a
husband,
generation of healers and they're
mm,
immersed in that kind of
nope,
energy, and so it's very
nope.
symbiotic and easy, and then some people don't, so it's just curious.
Yeah, but I was always the one that was leaving home, that was trying something new, that was looking, that was exploring.
Yeah.
So that they kind of looked, it's like, oh yeah, this is part of who she is. This is what she does. I was
Right.
not going to stay in the city where I was born and raised.
And
I
that's how did you end up where you are now?
Oh my goodness, many hops, many hops. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and
Mhm.
I love to be in France as much as I can. Um,
That's beautiful.
and I have family here. My daughter and son-in-law are here, and a brand new grandson and a 2-year-old grandson.
You said just yesterday.
No,
You're
last
Oh,
week. So it's
last
been eight
week.
days.
Okay. I
8 days.
think they come in so pure. It's
Oh,
amazing.
oh my goodness. So that's,
Mm.
that's the other piece of this whole time is how do I navigate my desire to be with them
Mhm.
and this what I have been gifted to do. And I know it'll work out. It just
I
does.
really believe we command our experience. I
Mm.
command my experience, and I
Hmm.
just command balance.
Hmm.
And I have things that are important to me.
Hmm.
And then it just energetically unfolds. I don't
Yes.
really
You can't
Mm,
plan it.
don't, yeah, I don't control it. I just
You don't
say
control
my experience is just going to be this,
it. Hmm.
and it works out because energetically that's the frequency I'm holding, you know?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so that seems to work out for me. But before we go, I always ask my guests, do you have any words of wisdom you'd like to share for people who are kind of going
Hmm.
through a lot of turmoil right now and a little bit of chaos right now? What would you offer to them to maybe give them a little support or some tools or something?
The simplest thing that is available to us that no one can take away is our breath. We can always in the middle of whatever chaos is going on stop and say, wait a minute, let me just stop and take a breath. And I think of that, taking that breath, and I think of taking it as light, breathing in light into the heart center, into the filling your whole chest cavity, front to back and side to side, and knowing, even if it's just for 30 seconds, it doesn't matter. You don't need to go off and meditate for hours at a time. It's that single breath. And in that breath, there is remembrance of what is true. And yes, life will call again and will want to pull you out of that. And you can always go back. You can always take that next breath. And it's a conscious breath.
That is so beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you for that offering. I really appreciate you being here. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining us today. Be kind to yourselves, love yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.